Now, if my mom calls anybody and says, hey, how come his mask wasn't on? Just know that you're going to say everybody was a significant distance away from me, okay? Please. Today is a very difficult day for the Ellis family. It's Manuel Ellis's birthday. This is the first birthday that Manuel Ellis's mom will have to experience without him. They were devastated by the incident. What we can concretely now say after the investigation that we individually conducted, Tacoma Action Collective and the family, that this was murder. For nearly 3 months, there was no action in this homicide investigation. The Tacoma Police Department did everything it could to hide information. The Pierce County Sheriff's Office did everything they could to back the Tacoma Police Department. They worked hard to be in a place where they created a false narrative in relation to what happened to Manny Ellis on that night. They tried to give the impression that he was the violent one, that he was the aggressive actor, that he was to be ignored. They used false, fake, and fictitious medical diagnosis such as excited delirium to try to explain away their killing of Manny Ellis. I can't breathe. That was the first thing that we heard that gave us evidence of something different. That came from a radio scanner. As the investigation continued, individual witnesses began to come forward as we spoke out. Those witnesses had actually recorded the incident. We learned from the Ring video from across the street that it wasn't only "I can't breathe," it was actually "I can't breathe, sir." We learned from the Ring video from across the street that the response to "I can't breathe, sir" was "shut the fuck up." This is a painful moment for the Manny Ellis family. And we're here to tell you that this is part of a pattern and practice with the City of Tacoma Police Department. Today we are here to share text messages that were sent between the offending officers and another officer that works with the Tacoma Police Department that is killed before. That text message that we are here to share with you in part said, "You guys are studs." It in part said that the whole second floor backs you. But when we looked into the person that sent that particular text message, we became deeply and even more concerned about that pattern and practice. We found that that person that had actually sent that text message had previously been sued in federal court, and as part of that suit, after he had shot another human being, the person that had been shot said that this officer actually uttered those same words as he screamed out in pain: "Shut the fuck up." Now, it is highly unusual that the same exact term, the same exact hateful words would be used in one civil suit involving one officer that shot a man and this incident in which a man was killed in response to pain. Now, in that previous civil suit, the federal court judge had said, well, that's not enough for a pattern and practice because you need more than one incident. Manuel Ellis is that second incident at least. In response to pain, in response to shootings, or in response to chokings, the Tacoma Police Department response across the board is, "Shut the fuck up." That is a reality that the people of Tacoma have to deal with, and something that the state of Washington and this nation has to get involved in stopping. But it's not only that. As we combed through those text messages that were available to us, we saw a symbol that we would describe as being of hatred, a symbol that we would describe as being something that really doesn't embrace due process, doesn't embrace our system of justice, doesn't respect our courts, doesn't respect our Constitution, and doesn't respect our humanity. We found a flag that had the Punisher symbol on it. And next to that Punisher symbol with the flag, we saw the officer's gun and the officer's badge. Now, for those of you that don't understand the symbol of the Punisher, it originally came from a Marvel comic. The Punisher was a murderer. The Punisher was something that acted as judge, jury, and executioner. The Punisher symbol has actually been adopted by snipers for the United States military. Some of you remember that movie, American Sniper. The star in that movie, the person that movie was made after, actually wrote a book. And in that book, he talks about that symbol, the Punisher, and what it meant to him, and how it meant inflicting pain, inflicting death. So it was with broken hearts that we actually looked at that particular text message, saw that picture, and understood that that was what was adopted by some officers within the Tacoma Police Department. Essentially, some officers that have been brutal to human beings in the city of Tacoma have turned around and said to these 4 officers, "Welcome to the club. You're now one of us." Now, one of the videos that you have seen, that so many have seen, of Manuel Ellis, of Manny Ellis getting choked and tased while he is being choked, actually comes from a pizza delivery person, Samuel Cowden, who was utterly shocked by what he saw at that moment. It took him several seconds to really understand the magnitude of what he was witnessing. He emailed us when he found out that this was an incident that people were actually investigating, that he wouldn't have fear of in terms of sharing what he knew. He showed us the video, and then he was kind enough to meet with us for that recorded interview that you all will have soon. Sarah. Now, Sarah was the first to come forward, right behind the officer's car, saw what was an innocent interaction with Manny Ellis just standing there when officers hit him with the door, rushed out, threw him to the ground, and began to beat him. Her words were, "Just arrest him. Oh my God, this is so scary." We have a full recorded audio and video interview of her that we are sharing with all of you now, along with a full recording from her boyfriend. This family, Tacoma Action Collective, Lawyers Against Systemic Racism, and so many others, pushed for an independent investigation in this particular case, because they knew that Pierce County was not capable of investigating the city of Tacoma in such a way where justice would be achieved. They knew that Pierce County was too linked to the city of Tacoma, that bias would forever be there. They knew that the prosecutor for Pierce County could not be fair and objective when it came to whether or not to prosecute a police officer. That's why we pushed for a state investigation. We will tell you now that justice delayed is justice denied. I will tell you as a person that has investigated many homicide cases that it doesn't take 3 to 6 months to investigate. I will tell you right now that generally individuals that are charged with homicide, the investigation occurs within 24 hours and it is done. The state has its information. And because of the remarkable delays, the failure to move forward, at this stage, we're just going to share the information that we were fully prepared to share with the state, with the world. Because the world should know what happened to Manny Ellis. And it's particularly fitting that we do this on this day, on his birthday, on his mother's birthing day, to make sure that everybody knows that Manny Ellis and those like him that die walking home from corner stores at the hands or arms of police officers matter. So we're taking our steps in filing a tort claim here today. A tort claim initiates and puts on the city on notice that litigation is coming. On behalf of the estate, on behalf of Manny Ellis's mother, on behalf of the family and the community, we do this. We can't stand idly by while human beings are murdered repeatedly by police officers. I read something earlier today that said something to the effect that there's only been 3 days since the killing of George Floyd that did not involve an officer having killed a human being in the United States. That is a daunting reality for people of color. That is a daunting reality for black and brown people that are just simply trying to lead their lives, go to work, raise their families, take care of their children. And I know this has been a difficult journey for everybody involved in the Manny's family, and it's going to continue to be. Sometimes when you are facing this new reality, the air feels heavy. It feels like you're walking in quicksand. You got to do everything you can just to take care of your own children, show up for work, get ready for college, and just breathe yourself. Especially when there's been an onslaught of misinformation from those that were intended to protect your civil and human rights, from law enforcement itself. Charges in this particular case are long overdue. This was murder. The police don't even have a legitimate explanation for why they approached him in the first place. The ones that they have given are ever changing and ever shifting based on the additional information that they suddenly find out we actually have. But if you're wondering about whether or not they were trying to change the message, just know that from the beginning, though they never shared it with you, they knew the last words of Manny Ellis were, "I can't breathe, sir." And they knew that the response was, "Shut the fuck up." And they knew that because they had that Ring video first, within a day of Manny Ellis's death. But instead, what they did was they tried to create that false narrative. We can't allow it any longer. The people can't allow it any longer. Litigation will start, and we will continue to push for prosecution because that is what is absolutely necessary when somebody is murdered, especially when it's by your government. Any questions?
Have you shared this information with the
We have offered to assist the Washington State Patrol in interviewing the witnesses. The 3 independent witnesses are somewhat nervous about interacting with law enforcement, understandably so. The Washington State Patrol, I think, has been slow in response to us. So we'll be sharing these videos, and we have every intention, if we haven't already, of sharing the full videos as well.
Will you
Well, that's a very interesting sort of question in terms of accept. We'll have to see what their investigation is, but right now it's slow, it's half-hearted, it's incomplete, and it's somewhat embarrassing given that a whole agency is supposed to be investigating this matter. It is patently disrespectful to our system of justice that where they would take 3 months or more trying to figure out every way to absolve these particular officers of any wrongdoing when they charge regular citizens within 24 hours of collecting the information that we have. And I want to be clear because I do a lot of investigation of these types of matters, and I've worked in the criminal cases courts and I've actually represented those charged with homicide. I know that based on this amount of information, that if these were any other people, they already would have been charged. And that's what's so embarrassing to our system right now in terms of the city of Tacoma, Pierce County, and the state of Washington, is anybody that's actually working within the system knows better. This would have been done within 24 to 48 hours based on 3 separate independent witnesses, 3 separate videos. This was murder. The individual witness accounts are full and unredacted. So you can make determinations in relation to all of them of what's important. I think that their fear comes through what they were concerned about in terms of why they didn't come forward initially. I feel like the videos tell you that each person saw a different piece, but what concretely rings through all of this is everybody said this just was not justifiable, that Manuel Ellis wasn't attacking anybody. He might have been trying to breathe after he was being choked and tased at the same time. And I think that you'll see that from each of the recorded interviews that that's the case. From the text messages, you can do the background research yourself in terms of who they're actually from. And then you can go to the federal courthouse via PACER and run their names. And then you can wander through the case, and in one of the cases you'll see in a summary judgment motion the individual that survived. And I want to be clear, the person that sent the text message to these 4 has actually shot 2 different people in his career. One was a teenager who died, and the other was somebody that was fortunate enough to live and be able to tell his tale. And when he told his tale, you will see in that summary judgment document that he'll say, or that he said, that the same words that were uttered to Manuel Ellis are the same words that were uttered to him. And this was years earlier. Shut the fuck up. So you can take that information and you can look at it, you can evaluate it, and you can look at who's actually sending these things. Now, included on that text message was another person officer that had raided a house in an unjustified way, handcuffed people for several hours, and the city eventually settled a civil suit. So welcome to the club. That's what they were saying by sending that text message, by essentially giving them kudos, by saying, hey, you guys are studs and the whole second floor backs you. Anything else?
Collectively, what do all this collective evidence, what does it tell us that you've learned about the culture of the Tacoma Police Department that is different from the way it presents itself publicly?
The Tacoma Police Department has sought to create the illusion that they are just, fair, and actually honor due process in our Constitution. The reality is there are segments of the Tacoma Police Department that are in a place where they will, rather than dealing with the misconduct of their officers, focus on sweeping it under the rug and challenging anybody that has the heart to stand up and say, we want justice to prevail and we expect more of a police department. This goes from the top all the way down to all of the line workers. The whole second floor backs you. Welcome to the club. Yes. Absolutely, and I don't want anybody to forget that this is Manny's mother's birthing day. She went through labor on this day. She had protected that young person for several months in her own heart, in her own body. Her heartbeat was his heartbeat. Absolutely. People will be speaking, and she's come here today. So absolutely, after these other questions are done, family members will speak. Is there anything else?
Have you filed the tort claim yet, and which court do you plan on filing?
We'll be filing the tort claim today. There are some finalizing pieces that I'm doing, but by the end of the day, the tort claim will be filed against Tacoma. And in terms of the lawsuit, we have to evaluate whether we'll file it federally or in state court. We have multiple options. What I will say is that given that we've seen a pattern and practice based on our investigation with the City of Tacoma, the City of Tacoma is absolutely responsible for the actions of its officers to the extent that it's failed to train, it's failed to supervise, and has actively been in a place where on some level it's advocated for this sort of inequity.
The filing of a lawsuit, does that depend on how the municipality responds to the tort claim, or there is for sure plans to do that?
The municipality has the opportunity to respond. If they respond in such a way that the family actually agrees with, then potentially there would not be a lawsuit. But at this stage, what we're focused on is accountability. We want these officers to come forward and have to speak. Some of them should apologize. All of them should apologize, really, but there needs to be public accountability, and that's what we're focused on.
You had mentioned before this got started that there is an expectation that these officers will be named in the actual lawsuit. Is that correct? Will they be named as defendants individually?
These officers absolutely will be named individually in the lawsuit. Absolutely. Each and every one of them will be named individually. It is still our demand that these 4 officers be fired. We believe that on a lot of levels, the City of Tacoma is actually trying to hide behind I-940 in terms of whether or not they can fire these officers. But what I'll concretely tell all of you is that I-940 does not create an environment in where they can't do their own administrative investigation and determine whether or not a wrongdoer should actually be fired from this department. They are hiding, they're misrepresenting what due process authentically looks like, and they are continuing to give each and every one of these officers a paycheck. They know that these officers need to be fired. They also know that if these officers were anybody else, charges would already be filed and they would have had at least 2 or 3 court dates.
What about the deputy that was involved? Is there any further information on him? And as more becomes known about this deputy, is there a possibility that the county could be added to this?
There's definitely a possibility that the county could be added to any litigation. We have evaluated that. We've thought about the absolute misrepresentations that have come from the county through their spokesperson. We've thought about how they sought or continue to, on many levels, hide information. We thought about how they essentially violated I-940 in and of itself in the most remarkable way, how they absolutely should have known from the beginning, and I believe that they absolutely did know from the beginning that one of their sheriffs was present and actually participated. So yes, we would expect that there's a real possibility that the sheriff's office, really Pierce County, gets added to litigation.
What would you place that percentage at? 50-50, 80-20,
I wouldn't
67-33?
That's very interesting. I wouldn't base it on a percentage. I would say that we're in a place where we're evaluating all of that information and we'll make determinations from there. But what is really interesting in your question is that while the 4 officers their names were put out there relatively quickly, Pierce County has remained silent in relation to who that individual officer is, right? I'll also tell you that with the independent investigation team through the state has frankly failed to do what they needed to do in terms of their weekly press conferences with you. They've worked actively to be in a space where they barely share any information with you. For instance, with the IIT team, they claim that while they put that information out there, they only put the first initial and the last name, which impacts the ability of anybody to actually figure out authentically who the members of the IIT team even are. Those are the problems that we're running up against. Right now, the Washington State Patrol is busy looking for any reason not to charge these officers. That's the only reason why this takes so long. Anything else?
What about the sort of swift return to work of these four officers initially? You know, we found evidence that they were back at work by the 16th, less than 2 weeks later, and there were acts that they got involved with that further compromised the investigation. Can you talk about, that step that the city let them come back so quickly?
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the investigations that the City of Tacoma actually claimed to do. They claim that they do investigations before officers actually come back to work. These officers actually came back to work within just a couple of weeks. Within just a few weeks, they were actually back on the job. Again, interacting in their work with Pierce County Sheriff's Office. Now, this tells you a couple of things about their due process investigation. A, while Tacoma says that they can't do anything because an investigation hasn't been completed via I-940, they actually completed what they perceived to be an investigation in reference to these officers. Further evidence that they condone the acts. Secondly, they've been put on leave multiple times in relation to this, which would tell us that they had moved through in such a way that they had actively worked on their own independent investigations. So they're still and seeking any reason not to do the right thing, which would be fire these officers. And when I say that, I also think that it's important to understand who actually has power to fire officers within the City of Tacoma. Mayor Woodward stood before the press conference, and her words essentially were those officers should be fired and they should be charged. The person that has the power to actually fire a police officer in the City of Tacoma is a city manager. Now, in this case, the city manager is an attorney, and what should be known about that particular attorney, city manager, is that they formerly worked as a prosecutor. Because they worked as a prosecutor, they worked intimately and directly. They worked intimately and directly with law enforcement itself. So I question whether or not this particular city manager can even be in a spot where she's capable of standing up in the way that we actually need for her to stand up. I question whether or not she can assure accountability in this city. I question, under all the circumstances and facts, why the city council at this point hasn't removed her from her position, because that's actually the power that the city council has in this circumstance. From who? I thought you said Mr. Ellis, so I was going to say, we certainly wish that. Is there anything else? Okay, I'll say one last thing before we open this up to the family. The reality is that independent investigations through the state of Washington were the best that we had at the moment. In the future, I hope that we do better than this. There needs to be an independent agency that's specifically set up to evaluate and investigate police conduct throughout the state of Washington. It's my belief that what should happen with that is that individual public defenders should be assigned to that department to be the individuals that actually prosecute officers. A, because they have the absolute trial experience. B, because they're in a place where they've traditionally had an adversarial relationship with law enforcement. C, because they know how to actually investigate matters thoroughly and effectively. And D, because the people need some sort of protection. And when the public defenders actually work in that spot, it's my hope that we will call them the people because they'll be all that we have. They'll be all that we have when we're actually seeking to have justice and accountability for all people, even if you have a badge. Thank you, family members.
Well, good afternoon to you all. And you want to speak first, son? Okay. So today is a day in my life that I will never forget. 34 years ago, I had the pleasure, the mothering to give birth to a human. That let me know who God really was. I need to say this though, and I may not say it, I may not articulate like everybody thinks that I should, but I'm gonna say it as best as I can. My son would have been 34 years old today. We would have partied. We would have had barbecue and all kinds of food. We believe in family. My son was someone that was cared for and loved. Shout out to D. Sontag. I just see who you were. You got it all over the internet and the Facebook about my son. Thank you for being an attorney that stands up and stands with us. Now, the same thing with the police. Why you got 12 or 15 cars down for a little protest? Why? Why are you watching us like that? The same way those 4 police officers were watching my son as he walked down and said, oh, that's a good one. Let's get him and let's get those little rookies to get their points by killing people. Killing black men. My son was a black man who loved his children, who loved his family. You want to hear from me? I'm pissed off. I'm mad as hell that my son can't be here with us celebrating today. I went 28 hours of labor with him. I miss my boy. All I have is an empty plot. Messiah Ford. We were Facebook friends for 10 years. You were my TA for 2 years. You came out to me. Why? Haven't you come to me and said, Miss Carter, I'm really sorry. Messiah Ford was a student of mine when I worked at Tacoma School District. Why? Why hasn't the governor, the mayor, the city executive done their jobs? Why? Because they're all white folks sitting in their little cushy ass jobs and then don't want to do the right thing by my black African American son. When? When is this going to change? How long are we going to continue to let city executive, the mayor, the police chief, and all of the rest of them, how long are we going to continue to let them sit on their asses and do nothing about my son's case? I haven't heard from anyone. How many days, baby? How many has it been? 178 days without my son. I don't cry no more. I'm just angry. Look, George Floyd, all over everywhere. Breonna Taylor on Oprah. My son is right here. Died, killed, murdered by the police. I want some action. I want to see it. July has passed. August is now here. My son's birthday is today. No tears for me. No more tears. Messiah Ford. as we do, as I do. Maybe some of you don't, but I do. My son was at church. He was taught to be in the church. When I was pregnant with him, the Lord filled me with his presence. Manuel was an anointed child. Could play any music by ear. They took my son away from me. I'm finished screaming, hollering. I want some justice. I want to see justice for my son. Accountability. Why can't they call out to us? I've never heard yet, one time, I got a call from the coroner. Your son, or a deputy, your son has been murdered. It's already been investigated. It's already determined that it was a homicide. Okay? Your people murdered my son. The city county coroner has already determined that. Why do we need more investigation? George Floyd, 2 weeks, because they tore Minneapolis up. They tore it up. Normally, I'm a peaceful, loving person, humble. But if we don't cry out for my son, who will? Dee Sontag, she has. I got one time for the police to come and stand with us. Stand with us if you love brown people and black people so much. My heart aches for my son. It hurts every day, sometimes all day. I keep myself busy by gardening. I play in the dirt. It gives me a sense of stability, because if not, I would probably be out here destroying everyone I see because of the pain that I've been caused by the powers that be. I'm not going through the whole people. The governor is the one that said independent investigation. Yes, he got my vote because I want to see him finish it up, and I want him to know that. I gave him my vote this past August 4th. Now do something for us. Make your people accountable. Give us some answers. Let us know what's going on with this investigation and get those 4 people out of the office that are on vacation, taking all kinds of trips to Indiana and all other places. No! Get them off the payroll. Hurt their pockets like you hurt ours. This day is my son's 34th birthday. I love him, I miss him, and I can't have him anymore. Now it's up to the powers that be and our attorney and everybody else. You guys get with us. Every time we're having an installation for Manny this afternoon at 4. Be there. Was you gonna say that? 1011, 11th Street. There's an installation. On September 5th, look for something. Because it's going to be, that's my birthday, September 5th. But I'm giving it to Manny. I want Manny to enjoy it. Okay, I hope it was a backfire and nobody being assholes like they were before. I'm done swearing. Okay, listen. You guys, get with us. Help us. We need help. Okay? We need this investigation to be finished. Go to their doors and knock on them. I'm done. I just, it's a sweet time because of what is happening with my son, with us still being together and people that love him. But it's also an angry time. And God says in his word that there's a time and a season for everything. The season right now and the time right now is for the powers that be to make the decisions. Get these people off of the force. Get them tried and lock their asses up. Thank you.
So, my name is Matthew. I'm Manny's little brother. Hopefully you guys can hear me, but sorry, I'm his big brother. He always look older than me though. Today is probably the second worst day of my life. I'll remember it forever. Every day, wake up crying. Not one day goes by. I miss my little brother every single day, and I hope everyone knows that. He's gone, and he'll never be here again. My mom calls me every day talking about my brother, crying. Just my sister every day crying, and we have no answers. It's been so long. If this was anybody else, they'd be locked up. And we're tired of talking about it. We're tired of these conferences. We're tired of it. I hate speaking in public, but today's my brother's birthday, and I have to say something. He was a human being. He was a beautiful person. He made everyone laugh, and we just miss him. My kids will never see their uncle again. His kids will never see their father again. His kids get to see officers choking him and beating the shit out of him. That's what his kids get to see on the internet. They text me. His son texts me saying why they do that. So those are the actions that these officers have to deal with, and they need to do the right thing and step up. My brother wasn't no piece of crap, no low-down black man. My brother had a future. He was a musician. He was one of my best friends. We have so many memories growing up together, and they're all gone. So I'm done talking, but I want justice for my brother. I don't care about no money. You know what I mean? I can't even get up. I can't even get up to work anymore. I'm suffering every single day. So please, do the right thing. City manager, do the right thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say, but I just miss my brother. I have a lot to say, but it's just repeating myself over and over again doesn't seem to help or do anything. I wish that the energy that we see in other states, like in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, Georgia, it's awful that people, black people specifically, keep getting murdered by the police and mistreated while in their care. And I wish that Washington State would get behind my family, but also all the other families who are still being denied swift justice, because it's not fair and it's not right. I know I've been around criminals who've gotten charged with crimes in less than 24 hours. I have a cousin who was charged with murder, and it only took them 2 days to arrest, charge, and convict him. And I'm tired of people, local officials, and people that are higher up in the government contacting me, acting as if they're willing to help facilitate something and give me bullshit lies saying that there is an investigation and things are being done. Nothing's being done. All of this is propaganda. All of this is to get everyone to not tear up the city and to not destroy buildings. So believe me when I say that nothing has been done. Literally nothing. They have all the evidence in the world and still can't fire for misconduct. The city attorneys have told the mayor that the reason why these officers can't get fired is because of their contract, their union contract. But I've worked for unions before, and I know that every job, whether union or not, there's always a way to terminate a person if you want them terminated, whether it be because of misconduct, whether it be because of attendance issues, whether it be just due to personality conflict. There's ways to fire people that are in unions, especially police officers. If anything, if you don't want to say that they killed my brother and what they did was just and right, they lied and tried to cover up a whole entire investigation. They obstructed a murder investigation. There's no reason why officers should be where the medical examiner. There was officers that were there when the medical examiner had said, this is a homicide. Look into that. There's people that used to work in the medical examiner's office who got fired by county officials for no apparent reason. The real reason is because they were a whistleblower and giving information because they knew something was wrong. I urge you, if you work for the police department, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a secretary, whatever, I urge you, if you know something, speak up and say something. Because it's obviously calling out the witnesses and asking them to come forward, that's not enough. You guys know the dirt that's going on in your police departments. Is it really that bad for you to quit your job or to leave your job knowing that there's corruption going on in this county? This county is corrupt. There's no reason, there's no valid explanation as to why they tried to cover up a murder of a young black man. Why cover it up if you did no wrong? If you stand by your officers, if the second floor stands with you, why cover it up? I know if I did something wrong and it was truly an accident, I'm gonna be honest, because I have dignity and I'm not a coward. Another person I met pointed me out. He said, those two officers did the same thing to my brother, but they didn't kill my brother. And I wanted him to come forward and say something. He pointed both of those officers out. They beat on his brother late at night. They lied and said someone called and said he was throwing rocks at a church. He wasn't throwing rocks at no church. They beat the crap out of him and then they tried to hide him. They wouldn't even let the family know where he was.
Just like they did with us.
Officer Burbank and Messiah Ford. Those are the two officers that did that to that young man who was 22 years old and mentally disabled at that. These officers go around messing with people, homeless people, beating them, killing them, and no one bats an eye. But it's going on here. Someone needs to come to Pierce County specifically and investigate the corruption. It's been corrupt. We know we have a history with corruption here.
Yeah, in the 70s and 80s, it was corrupt.
And nothing has changed. The Pierce County executor has $4 million that he could use to help fund other things in our county. to give to help people with mental illness. He won't do it. He doesn't want to give that money up. He doesn't want to evenly distribute money to where it needs to go because he doesn't care either. He cares about the people that he's in bed with and his pockets and how to protect them. What they did to my brother was wrong, and I'm just waiting for it to happen again at this point. Maybe with the next person, it's sad to say, but maybe with the next person, people will decide to come out their houses and not go back in until we start seeing officers getting fired and charged. There's only been one time in Washington State where an officer got charged and convicted for excessive force, for killing a person. I don't understand how is it that in 36 years, only one officer in the state has been charged for use of excessive force and killing a person, but the amount of people that have been killed, in the past year here in Washington, there has to be some type of correlation with that. Like, there's too many people that are being killed by the police here. Most of them no one even knows about. You have to dig for the information. Why is that? Because they're trying to cover up what they're doing, because they want to get away with it, because there's a serious problem with abuse of power in this state and within this county.
Racism, that is fine. Institutionalized racism.
I really hope that people can come out and do something, because right now what we're doing here, specifically in Pierce County, is not enough. Something more needs to be done, because otherwise these officers are going to be able to go around and kill people and nothing happen. Sometimes you have to force people's hands, and this is this point in time where the city council members, we need to force their hands to fire these officers. We need to apply pressure to them, because if we don't, they're not going to do anything. Calling and emailing, that only does so much.
They don't respond to us.
Yeah, there's a pandemic, put a mask on. I don't personally care about a pandemic right now because my brother was killed.
Murdered. Your brother was murdered.
He was murdered by the police, so I don't necessarily care about much anymore. So I urge all of you to come out and do something, anything.
Come and support us this afternoon at 4.
My name is Monet. I'm the youngest sibling. M-O-N-E-T, like the painter.
It's Marcia Carter. Carter like the president, and Marcia is M-A-R-C-I-A.
I have Jamaica Scott from Tacoma Action Collective. She's going to talk.
I just want to reiterate what was said. As the Tacoma Action Collective, as a community organization, we've worked really hard to embed ourselves in the community that we live and we work in and that we serve. We've worked really hard to earn the trust of our fellow community members. And as such, people tend to reach out to us. People share information with us. And we do our best always to prioritize confidentiality. What I think is important for you all as reporters to be thinking about is Manny's death was ruled a homicide from the get-go. Who knew that? The medical examiner knew that. Pretty sure the police knew that when they called it excited delirium. Pretty sure they knew that when they sent those officers back to work a couple weeks later. Pretty sure they knew that when the autopsy report was finished one day and wasn't signed for a week later. The city, the county, they think that the people don't know anything. They think that we're just children throwing tantrums, and if they let it play out, then it's going to fizzle out and we'll get back to business as usual. There is no business as usual when people are being murdered in the streets and no one is being held accountable for it. There's no business as usual when our city officials, the ones that we've elected, the ones that our taxes pay their salaries, there's no business as usual when they are not doing their job to serve the public. And down the line, not only have they failed Manny and his mother and his siblings and his children, they have failed the entire community at large. So it's important for you guys to ask those questions. It's great to get these sound bites from the family. I'm sure that it really helps bring the emotion to your story. But these officials, the ones that aren't returning phone calls, the ones that aren't responding to emails, the ones that aren't showing up to council meetings, the ones who don't respond to election surveys when we're trying to do endorsements, they're the ones with people with things to hide. And they have a lot to answer for that they have not yet given any explanation for. So I just really want to urge you guys to look into what is a cover-up. This is a scandal. It's big. I feel like the only time that there's press on this is when the family speaks out. When we're at a certain milestone, maybe it's Manny's birthday, maybe the governor called for an independent investigation. But things are and are not happening daily. There's a cover-up happening daily. There is justice being denied daily. There are no answers for this family daily. The people with those answers there's not enough pressure being put on them. Not by the media, not by their colleagues, not by their superiors, and not by their peers. And I need you all to press them. They have the answers that we need. They have everything in their power to make this an open and shut case. The county executive, he said himself in a tweet that he fired a staffer. Look into that. Why did he fire a staffer? What was it for? People say one thing and they mean something else. Push. Get those questions. Do that reporting. You've all done some really nice work. Do more. Get in there, ask those questions, and talk to those people that have not been put on record yet. Why haven't we heard from Elizabeth Pauley? Why haven't we heard from the city attorneys except for through council members who are loosely saying what they can and can't say? Why haven't we heard from the city executive specifically about Manny Ellis? Why didn't he know about this? In his own words, a lot of them weren't aware. How are you not aware of a death in your own county? So if we have rules in place for transparency and accountability, why don't they know? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a lot of them are hiding behind the power of their office, their assistants, their Twitter accounts, or their full email and voicemail inboxes. It's important to get those answers. It was mentioned we are having an event for Manny's birthday, 4 p.m. On 11th and around 11th and MLK, right? 11th and MLK. You'll see us. We'll be out there. Please come.